Hey there, aspiring horror authors. It's another episode of Sako and the Moon, created by two self-published horror authors. Today we are talking to Stephen Zimmer. I am Sako Toomey, artist and author and a bunch of other things, but we'll just mention that I'm a self-published author 3 times over. I've been working on my craft for decades, and now I'd like to share my skills with you guys.
And I, as I always am Dewan L. Hearn, more affectionately known as the Moon, and the doer of things. I do all kinds of randomness. But I am a author and screenwriter and just a doer of things. That's really really the best way to describe all of us at this point. We do all of the things. That's where the Omni hat comes from. We wear all the hats. We're involved in all the creative stuff. And we're not the only ones.
We're not, in fact.
Our guest today, right there, Stephen Zimmer.
Well, hello. Good to be here. Finally on Sako and the Moon channel. This is awesome.
Hey.
Yay.
We've been on Stephen Zimmer's show, the Star Chamber show, on Podbean. We've been on his show before, but now he is with us. Now we're playing host.
Yay. It's good to be the guest.
It's good to be on the other side of that table.
Right. Less pressure for me.
Oh, yeah. Anything goes wrong, we have to fix it now.
Right.
All right. So, tell us who you are as an author.
Who am I as an author? Just a passion for storytelling. And I guess to sum it up, at this point, I have 32 books in print, primarily in speculative fiction, and I got a lot of books in the fantasy area: Ragnar Stormbringer, Raiden Valkyrie Tales, Faraway Saga, it's YA dystopian, Fires in Eden series, Rising Dawn Saga, and the Hellscapes collection, which is my my area that I do my horror writing in. So we're going to be talking about that in a little bit, but that's about sums up the kind of writing that I do. So it's a lot of things under that speculative fiction umbrella.
Well, you've got the Hellscape series that you're working on right now. The first book is out now. Link will be in the description. And tell us about Days of Darkness.
Well, this is a fun one because the first 3 releases in the Hellscapes franchise were short story collections, volume 1, 2, and 3, and which are also out. But this one is the first standalone novel. And ironically, it started just with a phone conversation with Tommy B. Smith, who I think is an absolutely phenomenal author. Highly recommend him. I mean, he's really exceptional at the craft of writing and storytelling. But he and I were on the phone one night, and he had been, is familiar with my short stories, and he was like, "You knew, of course, I have all these other books and these other series and franchises, novel length." And he asked me, he says, "Why don't you write a full length Hellscapes novel?" And it's just something I'd not considered yet. And so I basically looked through the ideas I had for future Hellscape tales, and I saw one that was percolating that I thought would be one that I could develop into a full-length novel, and that's where it started. And it just started from that phone conversation, and I found a story that would work in a novel-length setting, and there you go. And here we are. Days of Darkness.
Sorry to interrupt. Dante Eriks, who is a horror author in his own right, totally subscribes, and he is excited about the horror writing coming to the forefront.
Yes, that is definitely what Days of Darkness is. It gives me a chance to have no holds barred in the horror area, and I think it delivers in all those areas.
I love how it delivers.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. So Days of Darkness is a standalone novel, but you mentioned the 3 volumes that come before it. So give us an idea of what Hellscape is, like as a rating.
Well, I think the term fits it great because all the stories are hellscapes. Each story, whether the short stories or this novel length one, are stories set in a various depiction of hell, and the characters in the story don't necessarily realize that at first, but as they go through the story and it unfurls, they eventually come to that kind of revelation. And so they take a lot of different flavors. Like a lot of the short stories, some of them are more fantastical, some of them are more shocking and visceral, some of them are more almost like realistic, and so they take a lot of different tones, but they are all various depictions of hellscapes, and that fits with this novel as well, though the scale of this book is a lot larger, I think, than any of the short stories, the settings and all.
Oh, Holly popped in. So
Hey,
good to
Holly.
see
There's
you.
Holly.
Now
There
I
she is.
saw that the Days of Darkness is from reference of a Catholic prophecy,
Mhm.
the 3 Days of Darkness. What's
Mhm.
the full inspiration that you got from that prophecy?
Well, I do deep dives a lot in a lot of esoteric lore and myths and prophecies from various faiths, and when I came across that one, I was really intrigued because it involves 3 days of darkness that fall across the world, and it begins with a real unseasonable cold that comes in, and then a darkness that literally lasts for 3 days, where the whole world's blanketed in darkness. And what happens is the abyss or hell, whatever however you want to term it, the gates open basically, and demons are roaming all about the world, and it's basically seen in the Catholic prophecy as a purging of the wicked. And there's a lot of revelations, and several Catholic saints are involved in that prophecy. And I do invite people to research it because it's fun. I mean, just to look at the lore of how it came about and everything. But they, have warnings to the faithful on how to avoid, being ensnared by all these demons that are everywhere in the world at the time. And so this book is not it's not like a just a retelling of that prophecy, but
Oh, of
I
course.
love the vibe and the feeling of what was in that prophecy, and the idea of a shrouding of the entire world in darkness. And so I kind of took inspiration from that, and just built a hellscape story kind of from that kind of general setting.
Now, I don't know about everybody else from where everyone is right now, but the heat wave that we've got right now, I wouldn't mind one day of a cold snap. That would
No,
that
not at
would
all.
not hurt me at all. I might not want the rest of the world to end after the fact, but cold
Right.
day wouldn't be such a bad idea. Maybe the
No,
sun goes down a little bit. I wouldn't mind that at all.
no, we got a hot day here in Lexington right now, so yeah, it's definitely
A hot day here in
yeah.
DC as well.
So you are a writer of so many different genres and different things. Like, how do you enjoy going from genre to genre? And like, you talk about how much fun it was to do this novel.
Yeah, very much so. I love I kind of like it's a cleansing of the palate creatively when I go between different series, and really keeps things fresh, and it always is very reinvigorating to dive into each of the different worlds that when I do them creatively. Now this side, as far as the hellscapes world, it's fun because I have love horror, always have since I was a kid, and some of my most influential the writers that are most influential on me include some outright horror writers like Clive Barker, for instance. And so this gives me a chance to to let those influences really just come out and play. And so yeah, creatively I absolutely love working with horror, and the different kind of imagery and symbolism that you can work with, and the kind of stories you can tell, and just the fun of creatures and weird things. Love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Where do you get the most joy? Because I'll tell you, like firsthand, writing horror gives you that freedom to, and Sako could probably agree with this, to just say and do things you wouldn't. There's no other space to just say or do certain things. You can get away with literally anything in a story that's based in horror. So, what's the most fun about writing horror for you?
Well, for me, it's the fact that there really are. I mean, yes, there is to a certain extent some world building of sorts, and I do, like I mentioned, there is kind of a theme to these stories and a definite progression. So there are some parameters maybe, but it's not that I have to follow make sure I'm following my rules like I would if I was in one of my fantasy settings or the dystopian setting, where you have to stick by certain rules in that world, otherwise you break the connection with the reader. And like in horror, I mean, absolutely anything can happen. I mean, I can let the supernatural absolutely run wild. I mean, it's something where I don't have to. I'm not quite as constrained sometimes in what I can do. So that's definitely the open season kind of writing.
I love that. I'm also getting the impression that maybe you work on multiple projects at once if you're using it as a palette cleanser.
Yep.
Is that true?
In terms of the order that I do new volumes in my series, is like I will write a Raiden Valkyrie story, then I might do a Hellscape story after that, then I might do one of the YA dystopian stories after that. So it's just mainly on how I schedule what book I'm going to do next, and that way, it kind of in the background, I'm palette cleansing for the thing I just finished, and then I'm fresh into the new thing, and then it kind of works like that. And I've found that for me that works really well with as far as the new titles in each franchise. Helps keep it fresh and helps keep me really motivated.
I have to agree.
Yep. So luckily I have enough franchises to keep me busy.
Yeah.
That you do, which is one of the questions I had for you. We talk about the Omni hat on this show all the time, and how like our audience of the independent creative has to learn to do all the different things themselves. They don't have the big machine behind them. We have to do all those things on our own. You are a writer, you are an editor, you are a publisher, and you are an event organizer, as your shirt tells us, for Imaginarium, the annual convention in July. Plus, not even mentioning like the regular life that you have. Where do you find time to do all this?
Time, that's definitely a fine art, finding any time for anything else. But it's just basically just getting to the point where you just have a good, you keep things compartmentalized. So when I get up in the morning, first thing I do is write, because my brain's fresh. It's not cluttered with all kinds of tasks of the day yet. So that's my creative zone. So I start the day that way, and then I shift to what I call the office mode, and and I'll have sections where I'll do a block of editing, and then I'll do a block of work on the convention. But basically, it's not that not that I have such a regimented life. I mean, I do leave a little room for flexibility, but you do have to kind of keep things in their own zone, just so that you don't get scattered and spread thin and go down social media rabbit holes or get drawn too out there. And you just have to keep things in their own little section. And I think that's the
compartmentalizing.
Compartmentalized. Yeah.
I mean, if people want to go down the rabbit hole of past episodes of Sako and the Moon, feel free.
Yeah.
Other than that,
absolutely.
I can definitely understand why you want to. I mean, all social media drives us into all these. What is, real quick? What's your favorite rabbit hole you found yourself accidentally into?
Favorite rabbit holes? I mean, it can be. I mean, as far as that goes, it was probably my grandmother when I was a kid, and she was a big Art Bell fan with the Coast to Coast radio show, and then she introduced it to me. So it's when I was back in like late to junior high school kind of thing. And so once I discovered the Coast to Coast AM world with Art Bell, I mean, that opened up a whole lot of fun stuff. Lore of the Nephilim, interdimensional beings, cryptids, and cryptozoology, and all exorcisms and the supernatural and ghosts and Malachi Martin, all kinds of stuff. I mean, just topically, I mean, that just was like a smorgasbord of rabbit holes that all opened at once for me. So I think that was probably the most influential first initial rabbit hole that I've ever gone down, was that radio show, thanks to my grandmother.
That influence your writing and your career choices now?
Oh yes, oh absolutely, it did. Yeah, because just topically, I mean, you can see it because I love to write about the Nephilim, I love to write about the supernatural, I love to write about what some would call almost like conspiratorial kind of plots and things like that with shadow government kind of very wealthy, powerful people. So yeah, you do see a lot of it in my writing that would echo back to that. And even the main character in one of the main characters in my Rising Dawn saga, Benedict Darwin, is a former radio host of Sea to Shining Sea, and that was my little
There you
tribute to those roots and Art Bell. And so yes, it definitely had an influence on me. But now, I have shelves and shelves of books that all are on those sorts of topics. And I'm always spending too much money on Amazon is all I can tell you. Yeah, she gets mad at me when the packages come in, but I just can't help myself in building my library. So keep on, building up reference books and all that stuff.
We've talked a lot about Steven Zimmer, but I think we're here to talk about somebody named Ambrose.
Yes.
So now, obviously, we don't want to give away a whole lot of the book, but there's going to be some things I'm sure you're going to want to use to intrigue the people. So tell us about Ambrose.
Ambrose, the interesting thing craft-wise about this book is that there really is no protagonist and there's no anti-hero. This book follows a character that you probably will not like and will not like throughout the book. And I'm not going to give away too much, but Ambrose, he's an amalgamation of things. I mean, he's definitely a narcissist, a hedonist, just very, just very self-oriented and very willing to use people, and and he's part of, a power apparatus within this particular city that's depicted in the novel, and so he's pretty well off, and lives the high life, and he's just not a very shallow character, and I think that most readers will find him kind of detestable, and it's kind of funny to start reading the reviews and reactions that people have to him, because it's a kind of a war with people to decide whether they want to see him destroyed or they want to see him escape these various situations, and whether he can be redeemed or not. And so it's very interesting type of character to write, because like I said, he's not a protagonist or anti-hero. It's a very different kind of main character, and I thought that was a challenge to write a character like that was the anchor for this entire novel.
So if anyone knows me, this will be pretty on brand, because everything comes back to wrestling. When you have a wrestling match, usually you have like somebody playing babyface, that's the good guy, someone playing heel, and that's the bad guy, and the match is designed to cheer for the good guy, right? We do something very similar when we're writing. Typically, we have our protagonist and our antagonist, the occasional anti-hero, and that makes it easy because they fit a certain role. It follows a certain motif, if you will. What's it like to not have that to go based on? Like everything, I assume that in your writing would basically have the good guy, bad guy dynamic, and you don't have that here. Like how tricky was that to go against that norm?
It flowed, oddly enough, and I think it's because of the kind of story that I was telling and some of the other ways I structured it. But it's just the camera lens that I was seeing the story and that the reader's seeing the story through, and so it follows naturally. And because of the nature of where this story is heading, it was a very easy to see, the kind of course that Ambrose would take within it. And so it wasn't as difficult as I think I would have said beginning, when I was beginning this book and knew that I wasn't going to have a protagonist or a antagonist type character, and he was going to be something a little different. But at the same token, it was a fun exercise for sure as far as character writing, to have somebody that doesn't fit those kind of categories.
Do you feel like that's something that's going to influence future novels, even if they're not hellscapes? a character that leads the story without being a protagonist, per se?
Doable. It's doable. It's doable. The nature of the hellscape stories, I think, make it possible to do a character like that in a way that readers will enjoy and engage. Whereas other types of genres, I think it's maybe a little trickier to have a reader connect with the story because of the nature of the genre or the kind of things that people expect within another genre. But I think within the horror genre, I think, yeah, I mean, people can still follow this and connect with it despite that. And so yeah, that's another area where I think horror gives you a little more room in being able to tell this kind of story where a reader can follow it and not be like, oh, I can't connect with the main character and not follow the story.
You may mention that, like in the hellscape, he's already a detestable kind of guy. He's already a narcissist and doesn't care about other people, and already a pretty bad dude. So I'm assuming that this is just basically the comeuppance and the road to the comeuppance, in a sense.
In a big way, and that's the what I call kind of like the escalating structure of the story, because it kind of unfurls from a very something that looks very much like a normal everyday world, and then it advances and advances and escalates on a continuum until you have this insane Lovecraftian grand finale. And so so yeah, it's yeah, that's it.
So if you were going to grab a moral out of this, like what's the lesson to be learned? Like when I close the back cover, what should I have walked away with?
What you should walk away with is to be it's not something sappy like be a good person, but it does show the faces of evil in a lot of different ways, and I think it helps when people walk away. They're hopefully it breaks people out of looking at just appearances and just looking at something that's attractive or something that's got a beautiful appearance or something that's got money or success, and seeing those necessarily in terms of good things, but being able to pierce through those things sometimes to see the monster lurking under the surface. So I think it encourages people to think a little deeper and broader beyond the illusions that are often veiling a lot of evil in the world, and being able to see the things as they are. Genuine wickedness, and I hope that people get a little sense of that in this book.
I mean, that's a killer, like, walk away message, moral, if you will. And then if that doesn't convince people to buy the book, I mean, I don't even know what else we could say at this point.
Yeah.
And the book was put out through 7 Star Press, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you, as an editor and publisher, and focusing on that and the other titles from your other authors, how do you get to, like, with all those other stories in your mind, because you're editing and you're focusing on these other stories, how do you get to focus on just Steven Zimmer's stories?
That's why I start each day with my writing, just because I'm fresh, uncluttered. And I've always lived in my creative mind since I was, as far back as I can remember. I mean, my mom planted the seeds of me by reading me the Lord of the Rings trilogy and then getting me the Narnia books at the age of 7. And I don't think I would have picked up the Lord of the Rings trilogy by myself at that age, but she read me a chapter a night, and then and of course I grew up in a house that embraced love reading and that sort of thing. So I was way ahead of my years as a reader as a kid. So I read Narnia, and so yeah, I've always lived in this creative fire myself, and I've always it's like I said, like Holly says, I'm kind of in my own world sometimes. I disconnect at times, but yeah, but I've always been an avid reader, and I'm always consuming all kinds of different stories, and working as an editor, looking at the mechanics of different stories and how some things work, some things don't work, and so I always am drawing lessons in the craft. So that's how I look at it. Is I'm learning from all these different other things I do, whether I'm reading or editing, and but that's why I keep my writing first in the day, so I'm uncluttered in that, and and that's my chance to express my stuff. And so yeah, and I've also, I think I should mention that I've developed a very Pavlovian system in where I write, because I have one room with one computer that's not online. I keep this. It's an old computer now, but it still works fine, and it's disconnected from the internet, and it's at a desk that I only use for writing. And over the years, I found that kicks me into my creative sphere every time I sit down at that desk. And I always listen to music when I write, and that helps create a bubble around me where I'm not thinking about what's going on outside the house or inside the house. And I've created my own little system for writing. I think that helps just kick me in gear every time I sit down there. So that helps me keep away from having anything crisscross.
Does your choice in music influence your writing?
It does to an extent. I will say that I do listen to a lot of heavier music and hard rock and whatnot when I write, and particularly when I listen to Hellscapes, I start putting on a lot more things like Slayer, Cataclysm, Megadeth, I go a lot heavier in, King Diamond, Merciful Fate, bands like that. They definitely tend more toward a darker, more heavy kind of sound. And so, yeah, I do use the music a little bit for an atmospheric element. But a lot of people talk about they can't listen to music when they write because they pay attention to lyrics. So that's not something I have a problem with. I just get into the kind of atmospheric element of the music, and I don't get distracted by the lyrics. And so yeah, it's more of a soundtrack kind of effect for me. But I do when I'm doing fantasy, I'll listen to more progressive stuff like Dream Theater or Rush. I do notice that when I'm working on various different things, I'll tailor the type of music I'm listening to, the kind of feel that I have in the book. So it's kind of a soundtrack.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't think we know who's going to answer which question next. I was going to mention that Dan Brown, the author of Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code, he said the same thing. He's got an office and a computer not connected to the internet, and that's how he creates a space. I'll admit I get distracted by the internet.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, easy to do. Yeah, because when I'm doing my office stuff, you start getting notifications or messages. You know how easy you can meander, and so it's very, very difficult. And I know that would mess with me completely, because when I get in a zone writing wise, I have to stay in that zone. And so yeah, it's been the best thing I've ever done was early on realizing that, even well before my first book came out, and in kind of adapting that kind of practice. But for me, it works. There is no one size fits all rule for all writers on anything at all, even writing itself. But for me, that's the system that works.
The listeners understand that I stream 4 times a week. And what we do is productivity sprints. So we do the Pomodoro technique, and so 20 minutes on, 10 minutes of chat, 20 minutes on, 10 minutes of chat, etc. And that focus for 20 minutes, really helps people, and myself for that matter,
Honestly, it helps me too.
To laser focus. And then you take a break and, kind of distract yourself or talk shop or whatever, and then laser focus some more. So there are all kinds of neat techniques that the listener can, try and see if it works for you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I actually got on with when Sako and Morgan Hazelwood, they do their productivity sprints. They have a time that I set aside. Like you said, it's your time in the morning before you get involved in anything. If I'm in the middle of the day, I'm just like, you know what? This is time to just sit there and do work. I'm going to sit here and do work or eat dinner. Sometimes I do both.
Possibly do both.
But I was going to note that today is the 21st. And 1 month.
Happy Litha, by the way. Happy Litha.
Okay.
It is the summer solstice. It is.
Well, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to mention it in 1 month. That's cool. In 1 month, we will be closing the door on another Imaginarium, and there's no way that with Sako's involvement and my involvement that we cannot talk about the branding on your shirt, the thing that occupies so much of your time. Imaginarium. How did where in your creative spots did you feel the need to start Imaginarium?
Well, it's definitely a passion project, and it definitely comes from the heart because it is the kind of convention that I always wanted to attend, and that's literally where it started. I was going to a lot of events and a lot of conventions, and helping out at some, and be involved in literary tracks and that kind of thing. And as I got into it, I thought, well, what if there was an event that had all the really good meaty content of like a major national writing conference, or major national indie filmmaking conference, something like that, and also had the relaxed fun vibe of a convention where the ice is broken and people it's not so stuffy, and people feel a little more like they can approach other people and talk, and it's not so stratified or hierarchical or cliquish. And so I thought, yeah, what if it's a way to put those two things together under one roof. And that's kind of basically that's a genesis of where Imaginarium began 11 years ago. And
11 years ago,
yeah,
you're about to walk into your 11th Imaginarium. Congratulations for that, because any
crazy.
small
It's
event
crazy.
like that can make it past 5 years, 10 years to the 11th. Congratulations to you. And I think I can speak for Sako and for so many others. We really, really love and appreciate this event that you put on every year, the work that you and Holly do all year long for these 3 days. I'll tell you personally, absolutely changed my life. I walked into Imaginarium in 21, and I liked to write. And now, a few years later, I am now, nominated for this. I've published a book. I've done this. This is like what, 2 shows a week I do podcasting now. Work about to have a third one whenever my partners in Hollywood Hills can get off their ass and start their show. So then I'm going to 3 shows. I mean, my world has completely changed because of an event like this. As low key as you wanted it to be, is as low key as it genuinely is. So anyone who watches our show and wants to get involved in that writer and they don't really know what to do, you can always watch Sako and the Moon, because we're going to teach you what to do. Or you can attend Imaginarium in July
And listen to other people talk about, writing and marketing
and all the networking.
all the
networking that
network.
takes place at Imaginarium. Is there anything that you want to put out about Imaginarium? Let the people know. Let the people know.
Well, I think it's basically it's a battery recharger. I think it's a time in the year where the full tribe comes together in person, and there's something to that. And when you get to see your peers and your people you collaborate with or work with or network with or deal with online, and you get to spend a few days just together and enjoying it, and in a positive kind of energy kind of vibe. And so I think that's what's greatest about it, and it really facilitates that, and it's welcoming, so people have never been there before quickly become embraced by the community that's there. And that's why I think it's grown a bit every year. And and then that energy continues throughout the year, because as everybody connects, they start working together, doing new projects together. And
this show is a prime example of that.
Everybody gets a lot of people get publishing deals out of it. Every year we hear stories about that, like Craig Flowers last year with 3 Ravens. So yeah, there's always some great stories that come out of it. And yeah, it's amazing effect. It goes so fast for us, because I mean, we do work 7 days a week on this, and Holly can vouch for that. And do that amount of work, and then it happens in 3 days, and the 3 days just seem to zoom by while we're there. And
Yeah.
and then it's like, yeah, you take a pause, and then you start again for the next time. But I do think it delivers the content and the atmosphere that I had foreseen at the beginning, and I think that just keeps on getting refined and stronger with each year. And this year's no exception. I think this year's gonna have the best programming yet, for sure. And the guest list is just amazing. I mean, we have so many wonderful returning faces, and then we have a lot of great new faces that I can't wait for people to get to meet these folks and interact with them.
Steve Jackson
Yes,
is going to be
yes, he is.
at Imaginarium, and I am, for one, being raised with RPGs and stuff like that, I am ecstatic.
Yes.
So I'll be standing in line to get stuff signed for
and
sure.
He's going to be hosting a Games of Munchkin on that Saturday at Imaginarium. So yes, if you want to play that game with Steve, then that's possible.
Oh wow, I might look into that. Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, and then I mean, just such a good group. And Liza Groen-Trombe, who is the publisher and editor in chief at Locus Magazine, which by far one of the most respected genre writing magazines out there. And she's one of our big guests. And Bill Oberst, who, a lot of fans of TV shows and Hollywood stuff will definitely recognize his face, and he's given us an amazing presentation. That's going to be we actually had a YouTube clip that he sent to us that kind of highlights that, but he's going to give a presentation that shows and kind of reflects and was inspired by the various portrayals of the devil throughout history in literature. And so so yeah, horror fans I think will love it. But yeah, it's just I can keep going and going and going. But I mean, we just have such an amazing group coming in this year. It's going to be a phenomenal.
So Steve Jackson is important to me because back in the day, Cyberpunk and Munchkin, just at his guidance as far as how the future would go was in a lot of ways it was on point. And I feel like he influenced how I kind of treated time, the passage of time. Oh man, when 2020 hit, I was just diving into my cyberpunk stuff and going through the Chromebooks. We did that, we did that, we did that.
Oh yeah.
Where are my holographic tattoos? Well, they have AR tattoos, which is close. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, that struck a lot of chords with me, being a fan of dystopian fiction and things like that. Yeah, that period was odd. Just recognizing all the things that happened.
Odd is a word.
I can relate.
Oh, it's a word. Yeah.
I can relate. But yeah, Steve he's great. He's great to work with, and I can't wait. Yeah, for folks.
I can't wait to meet him. It's going to be awesome.
And of course, the legendary James Sabata, and then, as I call him now, Dr. Don Guillory.
Dr. Don.
Just got his PhD, and they are great. And some of the stuff they host that's of interest to horror fans, like Horrors Against Humanity. It's got Cards Against Humanity, but with a horror theme. Go to that. It is one of the funnest sessions you will ever.
I'm so hyped for it.
That is so fun. And I got to attend that. It's one of the few things I actually got to sit down and enjoy during the weekend without having to worry about too much. I did go attend that, and that was, oh man, that was fun. Yeah, John Palisano was on that, and S.A. Bradley, and of course
William Allen, and
Jason Holly, and Jennifer Mulvihill, I believe, was on that too. And
So one of the things that I super love about Imaginarium is it's the only place where I've met other horror writers. Despite going to Necronomicon in Florida and Balticon and stuff like that, the family, horror cadre, I only find at Imaginarium.
Well, I think it's we have made an active effort to make sure that everybody knows that all genres are welcome, respected, honored, and supported. And so, yes, we have, we make an effort to, support different styles of writing and genres, and that's very important to us. And yeah, there are some wonderful events strictly for each genre. I mean, like StokerCon for horror fans. I mean, or for writers.
One day I'll make that.
That's one that's, I mean, they're themed on one genre. I mean, they are great, and definitely recommend. But Imaginarium, the fun thing is you get all the different types of writers together, and it meshes, and it's funny because I mean, the things that can be learned between each genre, like what a horror writer can learn from a mystery writer, or what a mystery writer might pick up from a horror writer, to just take a few elements, a few ingredients to go back and cook with in their own work. And the cross pollination is priceless, I think, because you do get a lot of things that kind of get to be exposed to that you would not necessarily be exposed to at something that's laser focused on just one area. So you do get a little more of that with us.
So I'm working at co-writing a sequel to my standalone Flambeau, and I am the horror writer, and my co-writer is the mystery writer, and we show each other all kinds of new things.
Exactly.
And,
that's exactly
it really makes for a more fleshed out, horror story, mystery story, thriller, whatever, like, section of the store you can find it.
The line between horror and thriller and mystery is very thin.
Oh yeah, that's true. But I always tell my the writers I work with as an editor, or whether I'm talking to a group, I always say, read outside your genre. I mean, and because like Paulo Coelho, he's just a phenomenal writer, like The Alchemist and The Valkyries, and so many great books that have a bit of magical realism in them. But he's a Brazilian writer who, just he's sold like literally like I guess it's like well over 100 million books worldwide. But he's not as, I guess, as well known in America as he should be, I think. But yeah, it's somebody that's influenced me, even though I'd never have written in that, in his type of turf. And so, I mean, I always say, yeah, you can learn so much by reading outside your genre, and that's part of the same thing. When you work with, like you said, like somebody that's a writer in a different genre than you, and you're collaborating, like you're talking about, there's so much you can draw together to make something even better, I think, in storytelling.
Real quick, before we carry on, I have to address this comment from Holly. So if you get a chance to actually attend Horror Against Humanities, I was there with Steven when this happened last year, and we can't talk too much about it, not on this show.
Dear.
And one of those elements that we could not discuss on this particular show is exactly how much fun Jason and Holly had doing that panel.
They were epic. Yeah.
Let's just say there was a really big cup involved. Like there was a pitcher and a straw. And I'm not sure the straw was used.
Yes. It was nothing illegal. Yeah, don't worry, folks.
Nothing illegal.
Nothing illegal.
Oh, boy.
But yes, it was something. Yeah.
We might have to save that one for Patreon, because YouTube may not like that whole story.
Yeah.
But that just goes into how much fun we can have in the genuine family setting that it becomes at Imaginarium.
Yep.
You mentioned people working together and just creating new works together. This show is literally a result of that combination. I met Sako at a hotel party, and we had Chinese and ice cream together. And then next thing you know, we're having conversations, and she's like, you know what? We should do a show where we have these conversations.
Because we were having amazing conversations, and I was like, people should be privy to this.
Yeah.
Like,
she's so knowledgeable on different things in the industry, and we're like, you know what? That's what we should do. We should have a show where we present things to people who want to come and become and get involved in the writing and take the writing seriously and
Mhm.
publish at some point, probably independently, like I did, and like she did. But at the same time, we have people like you who run a publishing company, 7 Star Press. So for the people who are watching, for those types of things who think independent, I don't know if I can fit an Omni hat. Maybe I need a machine behind me. What's some of the advice that you can give? Yeah, I like that segue. I like that
Yeah,
segue.
nice, nice.
What's some of the advice that you would give to someone who's having that back and forth between independently publishing and working with a publisher like 7 Star?
Well, it's just, yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's what want to take. How many hats do you want to wear, and what do you want to take on? I mean, when it comes to finding a legit small press or independent publisher, just understand from the get go that the only thing you should be spending money on with them is to buy wholesale copies of books that you yourself are going to sell at a convention and keep the margin on. Everything else should be taken care of by the publisher, as far as the marketing, the cover art, the editing, all the costs involved with getting a title out. So I do need to say that up front, because there's a lot of more predatory types that try to get authors to cough up oodles of money for everything that's involved in that process. And so
Like,
yes, but that being said, yes, finding if you want to have a team that you can immediately have behind you, and you don't have maybe the life happens and jobs and families and all that, you don't have the time to tackle, or you don't want to become very solid in your knowledge of cover design and editing and all those things, and you want to put you want an instant team behind you, yes, that is a very good option. But if you want to assemble all that yourself, obviously self-publishing is a wonderful option. And yes, and so we have some amazingly successful self-published authors that come to Imaginarium that have sales totals that, when I've seen their Kindle reports, I've been like, oh my god, I'd like to have just a fraction of that. But yes, yeah, they're both very viable paths. But like you said, it's just deciding how many hats you want to wear and how much you want to actively manage, and in terms of your writing path, as far as traditional or or you go the self-published route.
so if someone wanted to publish with 7 Star, I'm an author, I've written a thing. What do I do next?
Well, the good news is, with small presses and independent presses, you don't have to have an agent. If you're going after the big five in New York City, I mean, it's almost 99.9% of the time, yeah, you need an agent that's going to get in those doors. But on the small press, independent press level, I mean, you can approach them directly. Reach out to the editors for those presses, and you're not necessarily going to need any kind of agent or representative to do that. And yeah, it's just a matter of sending a query letter, hopefully getting a chance to submit a few chapters of your work, or like at Imaginarium, we're going to have 2 pitch sessions where we're going to have several publishers at each, where you get to come in and present and pitch your project to them. So yeah, reaching out and connecting with a small press is not nearly as hard as trying to reach out to a major press. And but it's the same process of sending a query letter and having work ready to send to them to review. But the key difference is that you won't have to have an agent secured to do that yet.
And just to reiterate the point that you made at the beginning, the only dime that you should ultimately spending in that process is the money for your copies.
Yeah, that you're going to sell yourself at an event where you're keeping the difference. Yeah. So yeah, just to be absolutely clear about that.
When I entered into the writing community online, that's all I heard about were these vanity presses, where they're wanting X number of dollars up front. Give us $500 and we'll do this. And I'm like, ooh.
Oh, and they're out there, and they're clever in how they package it nowadays. Because Holly and I have saved so many authors from getting fleeced for quite a bit of money in that kind of zone. And it's the horror stories I have heard from some of them it's just awful. I mean, so yeah, that's why I'm always careful. I always want to kind of get that message out that everything should be, with a legitimate publisher, should be covered by the publisher, with the only exception being getting wholesale author copies to sell yourself at convention at a personal appearance.
Right.
As a like we love Imaginarium, of course, but I feel like every Wednesday you kind of like compartmentalize, like you kind of like make a little mini Imaginarium on your podcast, which we haven't mentioned before now, right?
We glazed over it.
Glazed over it. Star Chamber. What can you tell us about Star Chamber? What are the goals?
Well, it's now next week will be our 420th episode, and we're gonna have our guest of honor, Diane Mills, as the guest next week, which will be a lot of fun. So if people get a little sneak peek as to everything she's about, because she's an extraordinary teacher. I mean, she's a wildly successful author with a ridiculously long list of awards. But let me tell you, she is known for her teaching of the craft, and she's giving 2 really big, really good workshops at Imaginarium. So I can't wait to talk with her about that. But but it's exactly that. I mean, we are Star Chamber Show is affiliated with Imaginarium Convention, so it's in a way it's kind of like the podcast of Imaginarium, because we do want to keep the same kind of vibe. We want to have good conversations with and spotlight, support, encourage, and connect various independent creatives. Most of the guests we have tend to be authors or editors, publishers, but we also have filmmakers and artists and musicians and others on it. And we've even had a host of a YouTube crypto channel on it. So yeah, we're open to all kinds of different content creators. Absolutely. But it does take on that kind of same Imaginarium tone, where it's a relaxed conversation. It's not overly formal. It's got a laid back style, and it's not too over polished. And but it's definitely designed to get some good content out there. And if you do listen to the conversations we have, you'll get some neat tidbits on a lot of different topics that you can take with you. But it's also enjoyable, and it's a creative booster, I think, for some folks to listen to, as far as the feedback I hear, at least. So yeah,
you guys are now on the Podbean app.
Moved to Podbean, yes. Our former platform, we encountered some problems where they had the system go kerplunk on, and unfortunately, Sako was a champ because she was one of the ones that suffered through some of those kerplunks.
Boy, howdy!
But it frustrated the daylights out of us, and it's not acceptable, to have to be doing live shows and not have a platform working. So we had to move, and so we got on Podbean recently, and I think we just had our 5th episode. And the fourth or fifth. Yeah. And so far, amazing. I mean, I have absolutely loved it. And it's definitely been a good move for us. And I think it's, only going to help the show get better with the kind of exposure that it has to just, in terms of where we can distribute it to now.
So now from where you were to where you are, your new platform, now the podcast Star Chamber Show is available on the app, and you can be involved in the live chat from the app. And now you're on Spotify and
all
Amazon Music and iHeartRadio, and so anyone out there
YouTube,
who listens to the podcast, you can get that little taste of Imaginarium every week on Wednesdays. Beautiful thing I loved about Podbean is like you don't forget that the episode's coming on because you can set a notification. It'll tell you.
Oh, it's beautiful.
There's no excuses to miss Star Chamber Show on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock.
That's right. No excuses. Expect a doctor's note if you ever miss one. Yeah, at least.
I know I'll definitely need one if I miss an episode. But if I don't pop into the chat, I'm sure they're gonna be like,
hey, what happened?
Yeah. Hey.
So where can people find you and your projects?
Well, I do have a website under my name, just to make it simple, StephenZimmer.com, and just as you see spelled on the screen with a PH in my first name, Zimmer. And that'll find you to most of my connects on social media. Mostly I'm under the handle Stephen Zimmer 7 and number 7, handle at Stephen Zimmer 7. The only exceptions are a few where I'm at like on XApp Twitter, where I'm SG Zimmer, but most of the time I'm under Steven Zimmer 7 on various social media. But LinkedIn, XApp, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, you name it, I'm probably on it because I believe, and I'd like to reach out as much as possible to folks, and so I like to keep available.
Wow, that sounds like a job, like in and of itself is just like maintaining 10 or so
Yeah. Yep.
social media.
If there's definitely someone who deserved an Omni Hat award, it would definitely be
It would definitely be
Steven
you.
Zimmer, and we can't ignore
Oh my
Holly
God.
Phillippe either,
Oh,
and all
no,
the work
she-
that Holly does to
Yeah,
support
a
you
lot.
and back you up.
Yeah.
If anyone if we ever go have an Omni Hat award, you two would probably definitely be honorees in that regard.
Yep, and at least I'm fortunate enough that I'm, with my as I say, my better half that understands my world, and so I don't I don't get grief over the crazy demands that get made of me at times that might affect situations where the other person doesn't understand what's involved.
Mhm.
It's great to at least have that under one roof.
So before we let you go and get back to the magical world of Zimmer, anything else you want to leave for the audience?
As far as for which aspect, we have covered so much. What do you want to hear about? Is there anything
Closing statement for
a closing statement?
Lead it in about the book again, or whatever you want to say.
Well,
the floor is yours.
If you like horror, I do feel absolutely confident that you will love Days of Darkness. I think it delivers all the stuff that horror readers love and then some. And I think they will find it different. I think it's definitely not something that you're going to read and think, oh, I've read this 100 times before. It is something different, and so I do invite people to check that out as an author. And then, of course, Imaginarium. Come try it out, because once you have experienced it, you'll have something like the testimonials that we have on our site. So, and if you haven't checked those out, definitely do, because I think a lot of people have articulated the vibe very well on there. Invite folks to come out and join us next month in Louisville too. So
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Sako will be there. I will definitely be there.
I should be there. I'm planning to be there.
Planning to be there. Yeah.
A whole plethora of us will be there. It'll be definitely worth being there. This will definitely be. This is going to be an Imaginarium you're going to want to attend. I'll just say that now. You got 1 month to go to entertheimaginarium.com and find yourself a ticket. Now's the time, because I'm telling you, this is going to be the year. You're going to want to be there.
I think it's going to be
just me and Sako. You're going to want to be there. Playing.
That's worth it alone for coming to Imaginarium, is Sako and Moon. Yes.
Aww.
That's a reason enough. Yeah.
Well, I thank you. So if you like this video at any point, I encourage you folks to hit the like button. And if you want to see more interviews like this one, you can catch us every couple of weeks with a new guest. But we air every Friday at 2 p.m. And then on Patreon, we will have a private talk with Steven Zimmer, which will go up tonight. So please be hopping over to our Patreon, and you might want to subscribe here on YouTube, and maybe even ring that bell on the off chance that YouTube actually notifies you when we go live. And we will catch you guys on the flip side.
Smile and nod.
Smile and nod. Yes. I thought there was another video that I showed when I.
There is. This is where the end credits go.
Where are my credits? Oh.